I wasn't planning to go deep into the woods. Just 2 nights to myself. Off-grid. No cell signal. No obligations. No noise. I'd been working 70-hour weeks for the past 4 months, and it felt like my brain was starting to boil in its own stress. So I packed a second-hand tent, a water purifier, a few MREs, and enough caffeine to kill a bear. It wasn't meant to be an adventure. Just peace. Nothing more. The drive upstate was uneventful. Pine trees grew thicker the farther north I went, and the road had been empty for miles. When I finally parked on the edge of the forest, it was late afternoon. The trailhead was unmarked. Just a dirt path, swallowed by ferns and silence. I got the coordinates from some random camping subreddit. A guy claimed there was a hidden waterfall, 2 hours in, no crowds. That was all I needed. It was supposed to be easy. But I took a wrong turn somewhere. An hour into the hike, the path vanished under roots and moss. I tried to backtrack. Nothing looked familiar. The sun dipped behind the trees. And the forest started, listening. You can feel it when the air changes. When the quiet becomes too quiet. I wasn't scared. Not yet. But I was aware. I set up camp in a small clearing. No fire. Just my flashlight and the moon. The woods around me felt untouched. Too untouched. Like nothing had moved through here in years. That night, I dreamed of static. No pictures. No memory. Just sound. Like a dead TV channel. And behind it, something breathing. When I woke up, it was still dark. My phone said 3:12 a.m. And I heard it. A low groan. Far away, but clear. Carried by the air, but not on the wind. Because there was no wind. I sat up, slowly. The trees around me weren't moving. Not a single leaf. Even the insects had gone quiet. Then I saw the light. Faint. Red. Pulsing. It came from deeper in the woods. Not a fire. Not a flashlight. Something else. Curiosity overruled caution. I grabbed my jacket, my flashlight, and moved toward it. The ground sloped downward. Steep. Uneven. I slipped twice. Skinned my hand on a rock. The light got brighter. More erratic. And then, over the ridge. I saw it. A plane. Or what was left of one. The fuselage had been torn in two. One half buried in dirt. The other split open like a crushed can. Trees were scorched and twisted around the wreck. Metal bent outward, melted in places. No smoke. No heat. Just the faint blink of a tail beacon, still flashing red. I moved closer, slowly. The moss had already begun to grow over some of the wreckage. This wasn't new. And yet, no police tape. No search crew. No signs anyone had ever found it. I peeked inside through a shattered window. Seats. Ripped straps. Scattered luggage. And bodies. 3 of them, at least. Still buckled in. Still wearing what was left of flight attendant uniforms and business suits. Skeletons. Tried. Hollow. But not decayed. Like time had skipped them. Like something had preserved them. I backed away, bile rising in my throat. Covered my mouth. Then I heard it. A shuffle. Inside the plane. Not an animal. Not wind. Footsteps. I froze. Held my breath. Waited. Nothing. I circled around the fuselage, careful not to touch anything that looked like it had a story. And then I found the cockpit. The windshield was gone. Glass embedded in bark several feet away. Inside was the pilot. Still in his seat. Still gripping the controls. Mouth wide open, like he died screaming. Above him, on the shattered glass, something had been carved. Backwards. Etched from the inside. I leaned closer. Squinted. Still here. I whispered it aloud, and my voice cracked. Then, the red beacon on the tail began blinking faster. Stuttering violently. Then dead. Darkness. Total silence. Then breathing. Right behind me. I spun around, flashlight trembling in my grip. Nothing. Just trees. But the fog, it was rolling in. Too fast. Too thick. Like it was pouring out from inside the wreckage. I stumbled back, tripped over a metal frame, hit the ground hard. My flashlight rolled, landed sideways, and lit up. A hand. Sliding across the inside of a window. From the inside. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just ran. Branches slapped my face. Roots tore at my boots. I didn't stop until I reached my tent. And when I looked back, nothing. No light. No fog. No sound. Just silence. Like the forest had swallowed it all whole. I sat there until morning, staring at nothing. And when the sun finally rose, the trees looked unchanged. The ground untouched. Like I'd never left. But I had. I'd gone somewhere else. Somewhere I wasn't supposed to find. I didn't pack up right away. I sat by the tent until the light broke through the treetops. Just enough to convince myself what I saw could have been a dream. A trick of exhaustion. Hallucination from stress and darkness and too much instant coffee. But I knew better. That wreck was real. So were the bodies. And the hand on the inside of that window. By 7 a.m. I forced myself to tear down camp. My hands trembling every time the trees shifted or a branch snapped in the distance. I told myself I'd leave. Head back to the car. Get out of this forest. Out of this entire county. Call someone. Report what I found. I loaded my pack. Checked my compass. But the needle didn't stop spinning. That's when I noticed. My GPS wouldn't turn on either. Just a black screen. No matter how many times I held the power button. The forest was still. Quiet. But not like the night before. Now it was watching. That's the only way I can describe it. I turned in the direction I thought I'd come from. Started walking. Retracing steps that no longer looked familiar. The trail was gone. There were no boot prints. No snapped branches. No evidence of where I had come from just hours earlier. It was like the woods had folded in behind me. I kept walking anyway. After maybe 30 minutes I found a break in the trees. A slight rise of moss-covered rocks that led to higher ground. I figured I could get a better view from there. Maybe see a road. A river. A sign of life. At the top, I saw it again. The plane. Not behind me. but to my left. Like I had looped in a full circle without meaning to. But this time, something was different. The beacon light was off. But there was smoke. Just a thin trail, rising like breath into the cold morning air. That wasn't there before. I stared at it for a long time, trying to decide if I was going crazy, or if something had changed since I left. I should have turned back, but I didn't, because something had shifted inside me. Some quiet thread of reason had snapped. I wasn't just lost anymore. I was caught, and whatever had me wanted me back at that wreck. I walked again, slowly, deliberately, hands clenched around the straps of my backpack. Every step forward felt heavier than the last. When I reached the crash site again, the smoke was gone, but the air smelled burnt. Not fresh smoke, but the kind that lingers. Like memory, like grief. The bodies were still inside, still unmoving, but the pilot's head had turned. His face was now facing the aisle. I froze. There was no way. No wind. No animals. Nothing could have moved him like that. I backed away, careful not to turn my back. That's when I saw the footprints. Not mine. I know my boot print. These were barefoot. Wide. Deep. Leading away from the back of the wreck. Into the woods. Fresh. I followed them. I don't know why. I think part of me already knew I couldn't leave until I understood what this place wanted, what it had become. The prints led me down a narrow slope, through thicker brush, into a shallow basin filled with fog. And there, half buried in vines, I found something else. A second wreck. Not a plane this time. A helicopter. Military markings. Rusted over. Numbers barely legible on the tail. More vines. More decay. And silence. Complete. And suffocating. I approached it. Cautiously. Half expecting a voice. A sound. Something to scream at me to turn back. But nothing did. Inside the chopper, just empty seats, cracked screens, and an old file folder half melted by moisture. The label read, Operation Sinkhole. And below that, a date, March 14th, 2014. I froze. That was over 9 years ago. But the wreck hadn't been found. Wasn't on any map. Wasn't mentioned anywhere in the forums or articles I read while researching this area. Like it never existed. Like it was meant to disappear. I opened the folder. Pages were smeared, but I could make out fragments. Containment breach. Coordinates shift nightly. Team Alpha lost contact. Recommend abandoning site. Then one final line. Scrawled in pen. Almost frantic. They never left. My fingers went numb. I backed out of the helicopter. Heart racing. Mind screaming to run. To wake up. To leave. But the forest wasn't letting me go. I turned around. And there, 10 feet in front of me, stood someone. Or something. It looked human. Maybe 6 feet tall. But wrong. Blurred around the edges. like heat rippling off pavement. Its head tilted, slowly, as if studying me. And I heard it again. That breathing. But this time, closer, inside my head. A soft rasp just behind my ears. Then, a whisper. You came back. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My legs moved before my mind caught up. I ran, crashing through brush and thorns, branches clawing at my jacket, the folder still clutched in one hand. I didn't stop. Not when I tripped. Not when I fell. I just kept running, until the sky above started to dim again. Evening was already coming, and I still hadn't found a way out. I collapsed near a rock face, breathing hard, ears ringing, vision spinning. And there, etched into the stone beside me, as if burned into the rock, were 3 words. Still here. Still here. Still here. Over. And over. And over again. I must have sat beside that rock for an hour, watching those 3 words burn into my mind. Still here. Still here. Still here. I don't know why I didn't leave right then. I don't know why I didn't run. Maybe because there was nowhere to run to. Or maybe because something deep inside me already knew. I wasn't getting out. The woods had changed. Subtly at first. I didn't notice it until I stood up and realized the sun was still in the same place in the sky. Noon. Maybe 1 p.m. at most. But I had been walking since morning. It should have been later. Much later. I chalked it up to panic, adrenaline, stress, until I checked my phone again. 3:12 a.m. Just like the night before. Frozen. Unmoving. Same as the compass. Same as the GPS. Everything broken. Or locked. I tried walking west. Or what I thought was west. Back up the hill. Through the trees. Toward the trail I was sure I'd taken before. But the forest didn't cooperate. The more I walked, the more everything looked the same. Repeating. Like the same few trees were being copied and pasted over and over again. I stopped. Looked around. Tried to mark a tree with my pocket knife. But when I turned back 10 minutes later, there were 5 identical trees with the same mark. My throat went dry. I started talking out loud. Just to hear something human. Keep it together, I told myself. Just retrace. Look for the ridge. Look for the wreck. That's when I noticed the silence again. Worse than before. Not just the absence of sound, but the active suppression of it. Like the world was holding its breath. Then, in the distance, a whisper. Not words. Not language. Just sound. Carried through the fog. I followed it. I don't know why. I think I was tired of pretending I was in control. The fog thickened. Wrapped around the trees. Crawled up my arms like vines. I stepped through a break in the brush. And stood in front of the plane wreck again. I stared at it. Frozen. Mouth dry. Chest hollow. This couldn't be the same place. I had walked in a completely different direction. And yet, there it was. The same torn fuselage. Same beacon light. Still dead. But something was different this time. There was music playing. Faint. Static-filled. Like an old radio stuck between stations. I walked toward it. Slow. Careful. Inside the cabin, the bodies were gone. The seats were empty. Belts unbuckled. Floor clean. Like nothing had ever been there. I blinked. Stepped inside. The floor didn't creak. The air didn't smell like decay anymore. It smelled like flowers. Dry. Old. Funeral flowers. The music got louder. A woman's voice. Humming. Then. A new sound. Footsteps behind me. I spun around. No one. But the cockpit door was open now. It had been closed before. Inside. Not the pilot. But a mirror. Cracked. Smeared with fog. And written across it in black marker. How many times have you come back? I backed out fast. Hit the wall with my shoulder. Almost dropped my light. The music cut out. Silence. Then. Knock. 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 From beneath the floorboards. I didn't wait. I ran. Burst out of the plane. Through the fog. Didn't care which way I went. Just away. But the forest was shifting again. Trees leaning. Branches creaking without wind. Bark peeling away in strips, like skin. I found the ridge again. Or maybe it found me. And there. On top. Stood the man. Or the thing that looked like a man. Same figure as before. Tall. Blurred. Unfocused. Like the shape couldn't hold itself together. But this time. He spoke. A voice like glass grinding against metal. Deep and echoing where no echo should be. You left them. You always leave them. But they never leave you. I couldn't speak. My throat refused. My legs moved on their own. I ran. Again. But nothing changed. Same trees. Same fog. Same branches tearing at my sleeves. My own heartbeat echoing louder than my steps. Until I broke through another clearing. And came face to face. With my tent. Exactly as I'd left it. Stakes still in the dirt. Sleeping bag folded. Half-drunk coffee cup on the ground. It was still morning. Still bright. Still. The same. I dropped to my knees. Breathing hard. The weight of realization crushing every part of me. This forest wasn't just keeping me in. It was resetting me. Replaying the loop. Over. And over. And over again. Every path led back. Every trail became a circle. Every hour was 3:12 a.m. And somewhere, in that loop, was the thing. Watching. Waiting. Always closer than I thought. I looked back toward the tree line. And this time, I saw movement. Not walking. Crawling. Dozens of them. Shadows. Figures. Crawling through the dirt. Face down. Reaching. Dragging. Not just toward me. Toward the wreck. And suddenly, I understood. This place wasn't haunted. It was hungry. I didn't move for a long time. Just sat in the dirt, watching the shadows crawl toward the wreck. They didn't move like people. They moved like they had forgotten how. Twitching, dragging, limbs folding wrong, necks too loose, too slow to be alive, too real to be imagined. I closed my eyes, tried to breathe, count to 10, then 20. When I opened them, they were gone. No movement, no sound, only fog, curling between the trees, like it had never been disturbed. But the air felt heavier, like something had passed through and left part of itself behind. I stood up slowly, my knees aching, heart hammering like it didn't know how to calm down. The tent was still there, still untouched, but I didn't trust it anymore. It didn't matter if I rested. This place wasn't going to let me go. I needed to find help. Something, someone, anything that felt real. I started walking. Didn't matter which direction, as long as it was away. Every branch underfoot cracked louder than it should. Every crow call felt staged, like part of a looped background track, repeating just a little too perfectly. Then, finally, something new. A shape in the distance. Tall, metal, straight angles where the trees had none. A tower. A fire lookout. Old, but intact. Wooden ladder. Rusty radio dish. Cabin on stilts. My legs moved faster. It was real. It had to be. When I reached the base, I called out. Hello? Anybody there? I need help. No answer. Just the creak of old boards swaying in the breeze. If there even was one. I climbed. Each step groaned under my weight, but held. At the top, I found the cabin unlocked. Inside, a small desk, a map of the forest, some scattered gear, and a radio. I dropped my bag, hands shaking, and clicked it on. Static. I turned the dial, one frequency at a time. Static. Static. Buzz. More static. Then, a voice. Copy. Anyone out there? I grabbed a mic. Yes. Hello. I'm here. I need help. I'm lost, Anne. I stopped. Listened. Loop, broken protocol, recovered artifact. Not a response. Not to me. Just something else. I adjusted the dial, trying to sharpen the signal. More words spilled through. Fragments. Distorted, but unmistakable. Entity still roaming, reanimation failed, perimeter breach. I froze. This wasn't a rescue channel. This was surveillance. Monitoring. Recording something inside these woods. Something that wasn't supposed to get out. I looked around the cabin again. On the floor, under a fold-out cot, I found a journal. Leather-bound. Dusty. Pages filled with blocky handwriting. The first few entries were normal. Supply notes. Weather. Fire warnings. Then things shifted. Saw movement near the crash again. Not animals. Radio picks up strange feedback every night at 3:12 a.m. Dreams getting worse. Woke up with blood under my fingernails. Not mine. Voices saying the same phrase, still here. Over and over. Climbed down the ladder this morning. Found my own boots sitting at the base. Muddy. Still warm. But I hadn't left the tower. I shut the book. My mouth went dry. Whoever wrote this, they were losing time. Losing reality. Just like I was. I turned toward the window, half expecting to see the shadows again. But what I saw was worse. A figure, standing at the edge of the tree line, motionless, facing me directly. Not blurred this time, not shifting or twitching, just watching. I stepped back from the glass. The radio crackled again. But this time, no voice, just a new sound. Knocking. Not from the tower door. Not from the floor. From inside the walls. 3 slow knocks. Measured. Confident. Right behind me. I turned. Nothing there. But then, the knock came again. From the opposite side. I grabbed the journal, slammed it shut, and ran down the ladder 2 steps at a time. When I looked back, the tower was dark again. No sign of life. No voice on the radio. No face in the window. But I could still hear the knocking. Even though I was already running. I didn't stop until I hit a river. A real one. Wide. Moving fast. Cold spray hitting my face. It felt real. Finally. Something that obeyed the laws of nature. I followed it, hoping it led to a road. A cabin. A trail. Instead, it led to a bridge. Wooden. Old. But intact. And on the other side, a figure. A woman. Back turned. Wearing a pilot's uniform. Shoulders slumped. Hair tied back. She didn't move. Didn't flinch when I called out. Miss, are you hurt? I can help. Nothing. I stepped onto the bridge. Boards creaked. River rushed below. Halfway across. She turned. And I stopped breathing. Her eyes were gone. Just dark pits. Mouth stitched shut. Blood dried at the corners. She raised one hand and pointed behind me. I turned. The plane. It was there. Again. At the far end of the river. Glowing faintly in the fog. And from its open door. They were coming. They were walking straight out of the wreck. One by one. Some limping. Some crawling. Some dragging their arms like dead weight. And they were all looking at me. The stitched-mouthed woman on the bridge hadn't moved. She just stood there. Arms still raised. Pointing me toward the wreck. Like a guide. Like a warning. I turned and ran off the bridge. Didn't care about the weight of my pack. Didn't care that the woods had started shifting again. I just needed distance. But no matter how far I ran, no matter how fast, I ended up in the same place. The tent. Again. Exactly as I'd left it. No footprints. No disturbed earth. No blood. Just my half-finished coffee. Still warm. I screamed. A sound more like static than voice. Because I knew now. The forest wasn't keeping me in. It was resetting me. Every escape route led back. Every choice curved into a circle. It was designed that way. And worse. Something inside the loop was becoming aware of me. More aware each time I tried to break it. That night, I didn't sleep. The tent was zipped. But I heard things outside. Not branches snapping. Not animals. Voices. Faint. Like they were whispering through a broken speaker. One word. Over and over. Stay. Sometimes it sounded close. Right outside the nylon. Sometimes it echoed from the trees. And then, just before dawn, I heard the zipper move. I held my breath. Clutched the multi-tool from my bag. Waited for it to unzip. For fingers to crawl in. But it didn't. Instead, a slip of paper slid under the edge of the tent. I waited. Listened. Grabbed it. On it, written in what looked like charcoal, were 5 words. Don't follow the stars back. No signature. No marks. Just those words. When I unzipped the tent, there was no one there. Only footprints. Barefoot. Leading into the dark. I packed fast. Didn't bother eating. And walked in the opposite direction. I didn't have a plan. But I had instinct. And right now, my instinct screamed to move away from the wreck. Away from the river. Away from the bridge. Around noon, I found something else. A clearing. With wooden poles. Dozens of them. Shaped like crude grave markers. And in the center, a single metal object buried halfway into the earth. A black box recorder. Like the kind from a commercial aircraft. I dropped to my knees. Started brushing dirt off with my hands. And pulled it out. It was scratched. Weather-beaten. But intact. Someone had etched a warning into its side with a knife. Do not play. I played it. Of course I did. I carried a small solar charger for my phone. Jury-rigged a connection with a headphone jack and my power bank. And listened. Static. Then voices. First. Normal. A pilot's log. This is Flight 714 from Atlanta, en route to Montreal, experiencing turbulence over restricted airspace, requesting altitude adjustment. Then. Control not responding, sky has turned, something's wrong. Then. Screams. Metal twisting. A deep hum. Not from the plane. Not from anything human. Then. A new voice. Low. Calm. But echoing. They chose this place. They dug too deep. Now they belong to the soil. And so will you. The audio cut. And the recorder cracked in my hands. Split down the middle. Like it had been waiting for me to hear it before dying. I stared at it. And then I felt it. Something behind me. Not watching. Breathing. Hot. Close. Moist. I turned. Nothing. But the shadows in the trees were wrong. Too still. Too quiet. And too many. Then I heard it again. Knocking. But not on a door. On wood. I looked at the grave markers. One of them was shaking. I stepped closer. Drawn like a moth to flame. Unable to stop myself. Beneath the marker. A hole. No. A hatch. I lifted the wood. And beneath it, a ladder leading into the dark. Carved into the inside rim. The words again. Still here. I should have walked away. Should have sealed it. Should have run. But I climbed down. The air turned cold. The smell thick. Like rot and metal. The walls were concrete. Wet. Lined with moss. Like some kind of underground bunker. And there, lit by a flickering overhead light, a room full of screens. All of them, showing different angles of the forest. The wreck. The tower. Me. I was on at least 3 of them. Standing. Walking. Sleeping. This place had been watching me. The whole time. And then the door behind me closed. Hard. The lights turned red. And a voice echoed through a speaker above. Subject has entered the core. Observation phase complete. Commence retention protocol. I slammed my fist against the bunker door. But it didn't budge. The light stayed red. The hum of machinery somewhere above my head pulsed louder. Closer. Like it was moving through the walls. That voice hadn't come back. No more commands. No more instructions. Just that final line. Commence retention protocol. My flashlight started to flicker. Battery low. Because of course it was. I scanned the room. Trying to understand. Trying to make sense of what this place even was. The monitors. They weren't just cameras. They were records. Some were real time. Others played loops. I saw myself. But not just now. I saw myself from yesterday. From when I first found the plane. From when I drank coffee by the fire. From when I climbed the tower. From when I screamed into the radio. It was like the forest had been recording every moment. And yet, some of the versions of me on screen weren't me. Not exactly. They wore different clothes. Moved differently. One of them had a limp I didn't have. Another had blood on their face. I looked closer. And then I saw the dates. Stamped in the corner of each monitor. One said June 3rd, 2021. Another said October 18th, 2019. Another, August 14th, 2016. That wasn't possible. I wasn't even here in those years. This was my first time in this forest. Wasn't it? The air shifted behind me. Cold suddenly. Sharp. Like a door had opened. I turned fast. Flashlight trembling. And saw him. Standing at the far end of the corridor. Just outside the edge of the red light. Same face. Same height. Same jawline. But older. Eyes darker. Like something had drained the soul right out of them. He stepped forward. And I realized. It was me. Or had been. But something inside him had rotted. His skin was too pale. His mouth slightly open like he was stuck between breathing and screaming. I backed up, but another door behind me hissed open, and more of them walked in. Versions of me, from different times, different loops, each carrying the weight of madness in their eyes. They didn't speak. They didn't attack. They just stood there, surrounding me. One stepped forward. His voice cracked, thin, like he hadn't spoken in years. "How many times have we died here?" Another answered, without moving his lips. "We don't die. That's the curse." Then another, "You're new. Still hoping. You'll learn." I shook my head. No, this isn't real. This is some kind of hallucination. But I knew that was a lie. A weak one. Because I could feel the cold in their breath. Smell the smoke still clinging to their jackets. See the same scar on their right hand. Same as mine. They were me. Just. Used. Discarded. Left to rot in this looping nightmare. I stumbled back toward the control panel. Flicking switches. Slamming buttons. Trying to shut something down. Or wake myself up. Or break whatever machinery was running this. But one screen caught my eye. It showed a door. Not in the bunker. Not in the woods. A black frame in the middle of a field. Nothing around it. Just open grass and gray sky. A door that stood. On its own. As if waiting. Another version of me stepped into frame. One I hadn't seen before. Younger. Determined. Eyes full of fire. He opened the door. And vanished. The screen glitched. Then went dark. The others behind me started whispering. Chanting. Go back. Go back. Go back. One of them stepped beside me. Closer than the rest. He reached out. Placed a cold hand on my shoulder. "You're not the first. You won't be the last. But maybe, if you move faster than we did, you can finish what we couldn't." Then he handed me something. A piece of metal. Rusted. Flat. A key. Carved into its surface. Barely visible. A symbol. A door. With a crack through it. The light shut off completely. Panic shot through my chest. I staggered backward, hitting a wall. But the darkness didn't close in. It opened. A thin line of light. Horizontal. Like something unfolding in space. A door. Just like the one on the screen. Appearing in the bunker wall. Slow. Silent. Impossible. The air around it buzzed. Like static before a thunderstorm. And behind me, those broken versions of myself began to fade. One by one. Melting into shadow. Into fog. Until I was alone again. Except for the door. And the key in my hand. The key felt warm in my hand. Which made no sense. The bunker was freezing. The air still stale and metallic. Yet the key pulsed gently. Like it had its own heartbeat. I stared at the door. It wasn't built into the wall. It was just there. Standing upright. Unsupported. surrounded by a faint shimmer in the air, like heat waves, but colder. I didn't want to touch it. Every nerve in my body told me not to. But I was past trusting instincts now. I slid the key into the lock. It clicked once, like a whisper snapping in half. And the door opened. No creak. No resistance. Just space. Behind it wasn't another room, or hallway, or forest. It was darkness, but not empty. It felt deep, alive. It hummed like a throat singing just below hearing, a sound that vibrated behind my eyes. I stepped in. No floor, no gravity, no falling, just movement. Forward, like I was being pulled through a tunnel that didn't exist, carried by some unseen current. Images flickered in the dark, brief, fragmented, like memories lit by lightning. The wreck. Again. But pristine. Passengers alive. Talking. Laughing. Then the crash. In slow motion. Not from outside, but from the perspective of someone on board. Then, flashes of the forest. But different. Clean. No fog. No distortion. Just trees. Normal. Peaceful. Then it changed again. I saw myself, standing in the woods, but surrounded by people. People in suits. Hazmat gear. Military patches on their arms. They were setting up equipment. Drilling into the ground. Opening containers filled with wires and glass tubes. And in the middle of their operation, a massive crater, glowing faintly red, like something had burrowed out from below. The scene warped, split, shattered like glass. I was alone again. No light, no sound. But then, a voice. Not mine. Not one I recognized. It came from everywhere at once. You stepped where others died. You listened when others screamed. You entered. Now you must understand. Light returned. But it wasn't light. More like clarity. The place I stood in now. It was between things. A fold in the fabric of space. Or thought. Or memory. Before me. Rows and rows of figures. Lined up like statues. But they weren't statues. They were people. Frozen. Trapped mid-expression. Some in fear. Some in awe. Some smiling. And every one of them looked like me. Not exactly. But close. Like brothers. Cousins. Alternate versions that took different paths. They weren't dead. I could feel that. They were held. Preserved. Like bookmarks in some cosmic ledger. And something huge, watched them all. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. Curled behind the thin veil of this place. Staring. Probing. Searching for cracks. It didn't want me here. Or maybe it did. Another voice. Closer now. Spoke in a familiar tone. They were testing a threshold. A place the world forgot. A weakness. In the crust of what we call reality. I turned. And saw a man. Older, gray-bearded, wearing a tattered flight suit. His name tag was gone, but I knew who he was. The pilot. The one from the recorder. The one whose voice had turned to screams. He looked at me and said one word. "You're the last." I didn't understand. The loop is the cage. The cage is the warning. It keeps the breach sealed. But the breach is learning. He pointed behind me. I turned and saw the forest. But not the one I came from. It was distorted, glitching, folding in on itself like origami made of fog and bone. And inside it, something moved. Huge. Not a shape. Not a beast. But a concept trying to become flesh. It crawled across timelines, devouring versions of me, absorbing them. That's why the others were stuck. Why they whispered. Why they chanted. They weren't warning me. They were feeding it. Trying to survive. By giving it someone new. Me. I stepped back. Felt the edge of the platform I stood on. Below. Only void. The pilot leaned in. "You can end it. One final reset. But you have to go deeper. To where it began. Before the wreck. Before the breach. Back to the moment the forest opened." I shook my head. "No. I can't. I'm not." But the world around me fractured. The statues shattered. The hum turned into a scream. And the thing, the one that watched, finally began to rise. It had no eyes. No limbs. Only the shape of hunger. And it was coming for me. The thing rose. Not fast. Not clumsy. But deliberate. Like it had done this before. Countless times. It didn't walk. Didn't crawl. It expanded. A shadow without source. A hunger without need. The platform beneath me began to crack. Lines of black spreading like veins. And the pilot, the only other soul in this nowhere place, stood completely still. "You don't have time to decide," he said. "Only to act." The thing screamed. But it wasn't sound. It was removal. A pressure that stripped meaning from every thought I'd ever had. A scream that said, "You don't belong in this moment," and never did. My knees gave out. I collapsed. Hands clutching the edge of the broken platform. There was nothing beneath. No floor. No sky. Just after. And suddenly, the pilot was beside me. Kneeling. Eyes hollow. He placed something in my hand. The black box. "Whole again. Play it," he said. "One more time." I didn't ask how. Didn't question why. I pressed the single button glowing on its surface. The recorder clicked. Static. Then. "Control to flight 714, you're entering restricted coordinates. Repeat, you are." Another voice cut in. "Sir, we're detecting movement beneath the tree line." Then. Silence. Then. Me. I heard myself. "If you're hearing this, I didn't make it. Or maybe I did, but not the way you think. You'll come here. You'll think you're alone. You're not." The platform buckled. The pilot backed away. face solemn. No fear. This place loops because it remembers. It remembers us. Every choice. Every failure. But memory can be overridden. He looked at me. And I understood. One more loop. One final reset. But it required a cost. Not blood. Not sacrifice. Belief. I gripped the recorder. Stood. Faced the thing as it moved closer. Tendrils of fog curling around pieces of other me. Ripped from different versions of the story. All my failures. All the moments I turned back. Gave in. Screamed. Ran. They were feeding it. So this time, I didn't run. I walked straight toward it. The key still in my hand. The black box in the other. And I said aloud, I reject the loop. The air vibrated. Like a bell struck deep beneath the ocean. I repeated it. Louder. I reject the story. I reject the forest. I reject the fear. This ends. Now. The thing reared back. Not in pain, but in resistance. It couldn't function without belief. Without memory. Without a witness. And I was choosing to forget. I stepped into it. Into the black. Into the core. Where every version of me screamed all at once. The recorder shattered. The door behind me vanished. The hunger collapsed inward. And then, light. I woke up beside my campfire. The sun was rising. Birds were singing. The tent was intact. My backpack full. No fog. No static. No wreckage. I stood up, expecting dizziness. But there was none. My phone. Working. 3:13 a.m. And the minute hand moved. I walked. Back to the trail. Found my car. Unlocked it. There was dirt on the passenger seat. And a torn page from a logbook. Written in messy ink. He did it. I think he finally broke it. If you're reading this, you might not remember why you came. And that's good. Don't go looking. I sat in the driver's seat. And laughed. Not relief. Not joy. Just the strange, hollow sound of someone who had finally escaped something they couldn't name. Days passed. Then weeks. And then, in the middle of the night, I got a message on my phone. No number. No contact. Just audio. I hit play. Static. Breath. And then, still here. Some places aren't lost. They're hidden for a reason. I made it out. I think. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear the static. If you ever see a wreck deep in the woods, don't open the door.